Check out all our past episodes at raceonmain.com and stay tuned for a great show with Fernando Trevino, who's going to talk all about immigration policies in the United States.
You will not believe some of the things this guy has to say.
Yeah, very impressive, so stay tuned. Good morning, Philadelphia, and welcome to another show of Race on Main Street. It is freezing cold in the city, so I hope you all are warm. If you need to stay in, take it easy. You can always check out our past episodes at raceonmain.com, and hopefully you'll be able to sit back, grab something hot to drink, and catch this episode, our latest current episode of Race on Main Street. But again, raceonmain.com. We have a terrific show for you today. We are going to be talking about, interestingly enough, very topical, immigration in the United States. And we have an expert here who's going to spend an awful lot of time informing us about some great things related to immigration, so we can learn a little bit more about the behind-the-scenes details as to what goes on. But before we get started, as always, we have the number one side help, Stewie.
Tell us, Stewie.
Look like that guy ate me. But, you know, what
It's from an old picture of professional pictures that we had. If you remember.
Yes, I do. Yes.
It's perfect. We're going to have the Stewie segment.
I'm going to have new pictures taken, I think is really what's more important. But,
yeah,
I don't want to spend a lot of time talking to you because I want to get to the guest. But
I do
there's
too,
something that I did want to bring up real fast. So I'm listening to Marketplace last night, and they're talking about there's a whole series of, this woman is writing a series of articles about how what is it to be unplugged anymore, and she brought up the topic of what she did in her life was she blocked Amazon. Okay, so she didn't turn off her cell phone or anything like that. She just said, is it possible in our current circumstance to live without Amazon or live without Google?
Right.
And what she discovered, and I don't understand all the details, maybe you understand it better, is Amazon's business and Google's business. You think Amazon's a retailer. They're not, they're a server farm. That's where they really make their money. This is what she found out. So by blocking Amazon, she lost half the internet.
Oh.
So think about that. And Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. They have, between the three of them, they have over 100 million IP addresses.
Oh my goodness.
Facebook is way far behind with only like 100,000.
That's incredible.
So the idea that all they do is they're server farms. They're landing spots for every website that you. So can we be without these things?
It's funny.
We cannot.
Steve Bezos is sitting in his office, or Jeff Bezos is sitting in his office going, oh, okay, they want to turn me off? No problem. Next thing you know, half the city goes dark.
That's right. Yeah. You're basically at bread and water.
Yeah. Wow.
Without Amazon. And that's where, and you
they
talk about
force
you talk about the evil empire and insidiousness. I mean, that is way under the radar in terms of influence and access. So
that's
I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's
I heard that last night and it scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, me too. I mean, those things, look, I mean, those guys, they scare me.
I'm telling you,
and
at
Apple
some point,
too. I bet you didn't mention Apple.
I don't remember.
I'm sure it's up there as well.
It may have been. There were, I think the ones that I remember are Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Facebook.
Well, I'll just point out one real quick thing because you mentioned Amazon. Jeff Bezos, in the middle of a divorce, did you hear about his shares? He owns 12%, which is ridiculous, or 16% rather, of Amazon. Incredible. Everybody goes, well, it's only 16%. It was 16% of like $10 quadrillion. It's ridiculous. But now their concerns are that he might not have total control if his wife takes over half of the shares.
How about that?
Yeah, interesting. So,
hey.
but so let's get to our guest, Fernando Trevino.
Fernando Trevino.
This is
apparently I'm not doing the introduction today, so we're just going to go right into it.
Yeah, all right. Well,
so let's just go right into
it.
No,
you wanted to jump in. So, Fernando, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is a very, very, very interesting, important, I don't want to say hot topic because I think it minimizes it, but a very, very important topic right now, immigration between our southern, what I think should be our southern partner, Mexico, that has certainly become our southern sort of, you know.
Ask the question.
So tell us, just jump right in, please. Tell us a little bit about immigration, your thoughts, your life as a person coming from Mexico to here, and how you help people.
Sure. I think that it's a very, very important and complicated topic to cover in one show. We can talk about from the humanitarian perspective, from the legal perspective,
sure,
from the political perspective. But in general, you have millions of immigrants coming to this country just like 150 years ago, right? Economic crisis, political persecution, civil unrest, many, many reasons that they are forced to come to this country. I think that the first mistake that a lot of people in the U.S. make talking about immigration is thinking that it's an option, or thinking that it's that these folks chose to come here. They were forced to come here because their circumstances back home were just not sustainable. They needed to leave, or they could actually die, or just not provide basic support to their families. So they decide to come to the border. The second part that is really complicated and it's a little bit difficult to understand is that the actual immigration process at the border, it's very different to what we believe, right? Everyone says, well, they just swim across the river and they are here and they are safe, or they walk through the desert and they are here and they are safe. Believe me, it's way, way more complicated than that. We were talking about it before the show. My first job in the U.S. was working at the Mexican consulate in a very small border town called Eagle Pass, Texas. This is between Laredo and El Paso, so in the middle of nowhere, the Texas desert. And for those almost 3 years, the Border Patrol Station at Eagle Pass arrested the highest number of immigrants trying to cross the border, but also the highest number of immigrants die trying to cross the border. What happens, and talking about President Trump's wall and all of these issues around border security, when the U.S. increases border security, usually happens in the safest places to cross the border. Because they have the idea that if they push immigrants through the most dangerous places to cross the border, they're going to turn around and go back home. That's not the case. They don't. So my job for almost 3 years, for example, was to be on call 24/7 to receive phone calls from the Border Patrol saying, Fernando, Consulate of Mexico in Eagle Pass, we found the body of an immigrant trying to cross the border. So we need to identify the body as soon as possible. We need to send the body back to Mexico as soon as possible. So my job was actually go to the river and help bring the body out of the water, or to the desert, whatever the body was, try to identify that person as fast as we could, because time is of the essence to be able to identify the body, locate the family, and then help them recover that body back to Mexico. It sounds sometimes like, okay, it's one case every X amount of days. Back then, we were having between 5 or 6 people dying a week in that one spot. Just in that one spot, 5 or 6 people dying.
Getting on one a day.
Exactly. It was a big problem. So it is very difficult sometimes for me, to be honest, hearing our president talking about we're building a border because it's about security. It's not about security. Immigrants keep trying to come, and they keep dying trying to come. So it is a problem that also has its roots back in whatever country immigrants are coming, right? There's a huge, human cost to failed economic policies in Latin America that they are forcing immigrants to come to this country. At the same time, there's huge human cost of failed policy about immigration from this country on dealing with this issue.
It's like they butt up against each other.
They do. So.
I like I told you before the show, I want to give you every opportunity to say your piece, but I have to ask this question. Can you possibly talk a little bit about the family separation thing?
Yeah,
of course. This is an issue that right now it's very hot, right? Everyone is talking about it because this administration took it to the next level. Now, I'm a Democrat, but this is not about political parties. This issue has been going on for more than 20 years, even when I was working at the border. The difference is the way that this administration is doing it, that it's something that we have never seen. But basically you have, let me start with what's happening right now.
Start wherever you want.
There is a huge wave of minors coming from Central America, specifically from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. And this is because of the huge problem they have with public safety and gangs, where these minors are forced to either emigrate to the United States or stay in their own country and be forced to join a gang. If they stay there and say no, they get killed, their families get killed. It is that big of a problem. So suddenly you have this wave of minors coming to the border. But the most recent component is that even children are being separated from their parents when they're coming across the border. The big difference between the administrations and what President Trump is doing right now is that even if a minor is coming with a parent, either both or mom or dad, they separate them, they prosecute or process the deportation of the parent separately from the minor. And the minor are being held at these facilities at the border, waiting a separate process. And that's obviously a huge humanitarian crisis because literally you have thousands and thousands of minors being separated from their families without having any clue of what's happening. When I was working at the border, the big difference was that if a minor would come with a parent, the parent would be deported, and it was the same process with the minor. They would never be separated. The only specific cases were when the father or the mother would have a criminal record in the States already, several arrests, several attempts to come in undocumented to this country, and they were going to be prosecuted with a criminal charge. That's when they would separate the family and just prosecute that. The difference is that the same day of the minor being arrested, they would call the Mexican consulate right at the border. My job, in addition to identify the bodies, was to actually make 2 or 3 trips a day to the border patrol station to interview minors and actually rescue those minors. And even when we couldn't unify them with their parents because they were being prosecuted, we would drive them back to Mexico.
So can I just, because I want to emphasize that.
Please.
So when you were involved in this 20 some odd years ago, the minors would be released to the consulate.
Yes.
To their own government.
To their own government, and then we would take them back to the Mexico.
So even if the parents were being detained because they were criminals,
yes,
or alleged criminals, the kids were not put in a detention center. They were given back to
yes,
a Mexican official yes, to take care of them.
Yeah.
And we don't do that anymore.
No. And it would take maybe 6 or 7 hours at the most for them to be in the border patrol facility. That's why the consulate would send someone 2 or 3 times a day
to make
sure.
What possible justification is there for not doing that anymore?
I don't know. This administration claims that it's a way to, to scare immigrants to come to this country.
So it's a deterrent.
Yes, to hold them accountable and say, hey, if you chose to bring
it's
your
a deterrent to people who don't have a choice.
Yes.
That makes no sense.
Right. You're preaching to the choir. Absolutely agree with you. So the difference was we would take them back to Mexico, and on the Mexican side, we would go to Mexico's family services, to the agencies, and we would help them to locate the extended family of those minors, and then they would take care of unifying or reunifying that minor with their extended family in Mexico. But yeah, a minor would spend 6-7 hours in a detention facility, and immediately they will be released. Even those, 13, 14-year-old, minors that were traveling by themselves, like literally alone, that they, you have a lot of teens doing that. Still, we would take them back to Mexico the same way, no conditions at all. So it's a huge change of policy now. Again, we're talking about failed policies from 20, 30, 40 years ago to now, but the way that these policies are being implemented is getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to think that this is what it's come to.
Yeah.
Doesn't it seem like, and maybe this is crazy, but you had mentioned like Guatemala and El Salvador, where there is, really it seems like the inability to find employment that is sustainable, I think what is the word that you used, doesn't it make sense to create maybe relationships, better relationships with them, economic relationships, in order to, I don't know, sell our milk or our computers or whatever?
Are we doing anything?
Yeah,
is there anything
where I'm headed
in operation?
So this administration just renegotiated NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, and there are some components to do that. So they are at least trying to gear into the right direction. But at the end, it's not enough. And again, I'm not putting the blame just on the American government, right?
Sure.
Obviously, our own governments are at fault.
Well, you started off with failed economic policy.
Yes, we are not providing what we need to provide back home. But we're not talking about, just people saying, I don't like my job, let me go to the United States. We're talking about if I don't go to the United States, my family won't have milk in the morning or even water. So.
And let's again, to stay with the sexy topics. Can you expound on, we have been led to believe by our current administration that we need this wall because these gang members are pouring into our country. It sounds to me like the gang members are not the ones who are coming, it's the people that are running from the gangs.
Most of them, yeah. Look, it would be unrealistic of me to say absolutely zero, no gang member has come, obviously. But the administration takes the 0.001% to make the example of it and said, oh, we have to build a wall because of that. Every city in this country has progress and has actually moved forward because of immigrants. Philadelphia, for example, had been losing population for 50 years. And since 2010 and now, Philadelphia population grew for the first time, and that's because of immigrants, right? Immigrants coming from New York and from other parts. So cities are seeing the benefit of having immigrants around, of doing jobs that most Americans, they just don't want to do. So this fake notion of, no pun intended, of course, this fake notion of building the wall and the wall is going to stop immigration, it's not true. Yeah. Nobody is going to stop someone running from, for their lives. So what happens, the only thing is that they are forced to cross the border through a more dangerous place, and the number of people that actually die trying to cross is going to increase.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. The funny thing about it is when I think of, whether it be border protection, it seems like we have more problems at our ports than at the border, right? Like they're not as secure as they should be, or at all, really. And if there's going to be problems, it seems like that's where the problems are arising or coming in through the country as opposed to here. So
just in Philadelphia, less than 2 weeks ago, a huge shipment of cocaine was actually discovered at the Philadelphia port. And the northern border,
the people that are walking through a desert are not carrying tons of cocaine.
Yeah. No, look, let's be honest. There's also a very important problem around drug trafficking with the border with Mexico. That's obvious.
Right.
But again, we're talking about an administration that is using that to actually fight this immigration problem that it's really not related. Right. And the other problem, and I don't want to deviate too much from the topic, is that the problem with border security, it also goes to all of the weapons that the U.S. sells, and then they cross the border illegally to Mexico and are being used by the drug cartels. Unbelievable. Right? So it is a problem that goes both ways. Just like we need to recognize the problem of the Mexican government for not doing more for those communities, we also need to recognize that the border crossing is not only a problem because of people trying to come to this country, it's also about all of the stuff that goes from the U.S. to Mexico.
Yeah,
let's talk about, I want to get back on topic, or back more perfectly on topic. Let's talk about how do you spend your day? What is it that you do now in this realm of immigration?
Well, it depends, depending on the role that I'm playing. Right now, I'm campaigning for city council in Philadelphia. I'm looking to be the first immigrant elected to city council ever in Philadelphia.
Probably should have led with that. Tell us about that. Council at large?
I'm running for city council at large.
Okay.
I live in the first district, so I live in South Philadelphia, in Passyunk Square. That is one of the most diverse neighborhoods in the city. My two kids go to our neighborhood public school, where the student body speaks more than 16 languages. It's one of the most diverse public schools in the city. It's called Andrew Jackson School in South Philly. But yeah, look,
That's ironic.
Yeah, I came to Philadelphia 18 years ago. Philly became home in a heartbeat. I met my wife here. My kids were born here. I became a U.S. citizen here, and then I had the opportunity to work not only in politics but for the city and for many other incredible jobs. And I just believe that the city needs, and my community and a lot of communities need better representation in city council. So I'm hoping to be elected to city council at large, so my community and many other minority communities have a place at the table, and we have a voice. So
that's wonderful.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I didn't want to get too political.
No. I mean, it's certainly fair to a fair subject.
Yeah. But it is crazy, really sad and exciting, and a bunch of mixed feelings. That I'm very proud about the fact that I would be the first immigrant elected ever in city council. At the same time, it's 2019 in Philadelphia, right? And it is weird. Philly has never had two Latinos serving in city council at the same time, ever. So it's sometimes weird and difficult to talk about identity politics, but it's a reality that our city faces. But coming back to your original question, so before announcing to become a candidate, I used to work for the city of Philadelphia. So I founded with Mayor Nutter the Office of Immigrant and Multicultural Affairs. So we were working on behalf of the city to develop local policies to be more welcoming for immigrants, from stopping information sharing with ICE to make sure that immigrants would feel welcome and we would be actually protecting families and not dividing families, to policies like language access and making everyone living in Philadelphia, making sure that they have access to services. So that was kind of my role until recently.
You know what I'm curious about there is, do you think it worked? Like when you look back at your tenure with Mayor Nutter and that program, did you think that you guys made real inroads with it? Was it a positive experience?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. We went from being one of the most conservative cities on immigration. More than 80% of the deportations happening from Philadelphia were of immigrants with zero criminal records or maybe a misdemeanor. So what we wanted to do was we need to protect those immigrants in this sense. If you're here undocumented but you haven't committed any crime at all, why are we going to turn you to immigration and divide your family, right? Because you're talking about the bread provider of that family. If that person is deported, then the other spouse has to work. And then where are the kids? The kids are U.S. citizens, most of them. They actually qualify for public services. Those families are not requesting public services because they have their father or their mother providing for them. Right. If the family is divided, now these kids go into so you really saw a change on that aspect. At the same time, it was our job to keep the city safe. So if you would have an immigrant that was convicted of a first-degree felony, a second-degree felony with violence, we would turn them to immigration. This is not about let's protect everyone in general, right? So we stop around 80% of the deportations happening from Philadelphia, and the city is doing great.
80%.
Yes.
And kept hard-working folks who don't want government assistance to come in and do jobs and further that next generation.
While at the same time making sure that the city was safe.
Exactly. So
that sounds terrible,
right?
I mean, you got to stop that.
Something that is very interesting, and please tell me if I get too wonky into policy, is that when you're talking about immigrant integration strategies, just doing public safety or policy, it doesn't work. If you go to the other extreme and you just do social events and cultural events and heritage events, it doesn't work either. You have to do it in a comprehensive way. So an immigrant, if it's coming from Asia, Europe, Latin America, wherever, feels welcome by the city, not only knowing that they are going to be protected by the city, but also that the city is encouraging to embrace where they're coming from and celebrate their culture. So one of the things that we created in the city, we formalized the flag raising ceremonies in city council. So we developed a program called City Hall Welcomes, and we would actually raise the flag of many different countries. Officially, the mayor would come down, raise the flag of that country, and celebrate that culture in City Hall. We would open the cities, receptions in City Hall. We would do a bunch of community-oriented events, cultural celebration events to complement the policy stuff that we were doing. So an immigrant will feel welcome generally, and it's the integration process into the civic life of the city is much easier doing it that way.
And I know that you're not currently in that position, but the current administration has continued that office. They didn't close it or anything.
Yeah, no. They made some changes because every mayor wants to do their things,
which is fair,
their own.
sure.
But yes, it went from being in the mayor's office of immigrant and multicultural affairs, just to be the office of immigrant affairs, and a couple of internal changes, but the essence of the work stays there. Mm-hmm. And I need to be fair, right? Mayor Kenny has done an amazing job embracing immigrants and continuing the work that we develop under NOTR.
That's great. I mean, one of the first things you said about all this, and I think it's the best term that I've heard said anywhere, was that this is complicated.
Yeah.
It's not simple. It's not a one-size-fits-all, we build a wall and we're good kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't make sense. I mean, we all know why someone wants to build a wall, because he's going to employ the people that he's buddies with. I mean, we get that.
Where does education of the second generation come into this?
It's essential. This is an issue, a very interesting issue that goes generation by generation. A couple of generations back, immigrants would do everything they could to assimilate the culture, not to integrate, but assimilate the American culture. Mm-hmm. They would teach their kids to forget where they're coming from. They wouldn't teach them the language. They wouldn't teach them anything because they want to protect them from, some adversities. Now, our new generation, and this happens with me and my wife and my kids, we're doing everything for them to feel Americans. My two kids were born here in Philadelphia. They are as Philadelphians as anyone else. They speak with a Philadelphia South Philly accent, like what? But at the same time, they are bilingual. Yes, they are bilingual. They know that their family comes from Mexico. They celebrate Mexican holidays and American holidays. So I think that the new generation of immigrants, what we're teaching to that second generation, to our kids, is you have all the right to celebrate both cultures. You're as American as anyone else because you were born here, but your family comes from another country, so you're welcome to honor and to celebrate your heritage, your language, and your history.
So you know what?
True melting pot.
Yeah, I mean, with those,
finally,
very, 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 those are great words and great thoughts. We're going to have to reel this in because it is time. It goes quickly.
It does.
and this topic.
We'll have to have you back.
Yeah,
please.
This is
We'd love to.
Yeah, this is a fantastic topic that is not going to go away, especially on that southern border. So your thoughts and opinions, moving forward would be great. So
thank you for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate you having us. So for everybody out there watching, thank you for watching. We appreciate it. Don't forget our sponsor, Redline Home Care. You can visit them at redlinehomecare.com, and also all of our past episodes at raceonmain.com. Look forward to the new Stewie information and segment that's coming. You saw the preview of the picture. It should be terrific. So have a great day out there. Stay warm. Thanks.